Okay, second part here, going to start with Chapter 7, Section 1. What is the difference between the heliocentric and geocentric model? I think this is one that we had a good handle on. Geocentric model thought that Earth was in the center and all objects revolved around it. And of course, we have moved to current knowledge that the heliocentric is correct and that the sun is the center of the solar system. Section 3 in Chapter 7, how does the sun produce energy? So getting a little more current here. It goes through nuclear reactions. Where does this take place? It's at the core. Chapters 7.4 and 7.5, so sections 4 and 5. What are the characteristics of the inner planets? Small and rocky surfaces. What are the characteristics of the outer planets? They're going to be much larger, going to be gaseous, primarily hydrogen and helium, and they all have rings. One of the things you need to do is review all characteristics and notes over the inner and outer planets. You can go to your notebook. You could even re-watch some of the podcast for our quiz that we just took on Tuesday and the Chapter 7 Part Number 2 quiz, kind of review where Mr. Cora goes through a lot of these. Again, this is going to be major characteristics, understanding what's larger, what's smaller, where are they located, order of them. We're not going to get detailed to know, okay, what's the size of Earth in kilometers. That's not something that's a goal of ours. You'll also have a chart, very similar to how the I-STEP works. You're going to need to be able to make some generalizations about the period of revolution, so going around of the planets. So we'll have the revolution times on the quiz. This is not something you need to study, but it has the revolution times of the planets, and you need to take a look at these and be able to use the chart, the data, to answer some questions. Continuing sections 4 and 5, a terrestrial planet. That is the name given to the 4 inner planets, which include Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. A dwarf planet, Pluto, as our example, does 2 of the 3, which is why Pluto is not a planet. It orbits the sun. It is spherical, but it has not cleared the area of its orbit. Okay, we do have short answers, and this section, just kind of a highlight. You will need to draw how the Earth and the sun look in space, showing the longest day in the northern hemisphere. So in other words, when we have a long day, it's going to be in June. How is that going to look? What is the tilt of Earth and the moon going to look like? So let me switch here, my pointer, get my pen. So if I have the Earth and I have the sun over here, get some rays, what's the tilt going to be? Well, the axis, the tilt is going to need to be, for northern hemisphere, towards. This top part needs to be towards the sun. Southern hemisphere is going to be away. So you will need to label the axis and the equator. So label those. So if this is my equator here, then my axis is going to be the dotted line that I have going through. Okay, next up, you'll need to write a claims and evidence statement. Make sure we use the T-chart based on your drawing from number 1 above. So you're going to make a claim as to why we have the longest day and give evidence of that. So I claim this because. Next up, you'll need to write a claims and evidence statement describing the phase of the moon that is pictured on the test. So look back at some pictures of the phases and be able to tell the difference between them. Your evidence will need to include specific details about why you think it is the phase you say it is. So examples of, well, go back and watch the wrap, the moon wrap, so you understand waxing, waning, and which phases are which as to how much light is there. There will be a table that lists the planets, their mass, their diameter, and their average distance from the sun, very similar to what you looked up in the multipurpose room. You'll be writing a claims and evidence statement based on information presented in the table. Make sure your evidence explains why you picked the planet you did. And your evidence must come from the data on the table. Don't put, because the data table says so, because I found the data in the table, so on and so forth. Use the numbers. Use the units. Make sure you answer appropriately. Okay, this question also include a table that has information on tides. The information will include the date, high and low, tide time, height, and moon phase. You'll need to write a claims and evidence statement claiming when there will be a spring tide. Your evidence will need to have support from information included in the table. So, best thing to do here, if you remember, we did the investigation online, neap tide, spring tides. Take a look there. Also go into your book. It had some great